is foul and foul is fair. Hover through the fog and filthy
Hi there folks, Laurel here. I'm making this video because there are some people here on YouTube who seem to think that decriminalization increases the exploitation of underage people for the purpose of commercial sex. For those of you who are still unaware, sex work has been decriminalized in two places, in New South Wales, Australia since 1995, and in New Zealand since 2003. Some people are pointing to the numbers of exploited children in New Zealand as proof that decriminalization is either the cause of this, or at the very least has increased since that legal model was adopted there. In New Zealand, the legal age for someone to be in the sex industry is 18. If someone is found to be under the age of 18 in the sex industry, they are not criminally charged and they are seen as being exploited. Those found purchasing or aiding the sale of sex with exploited children are criminally charged. I think that anyone with a well-functioning moral compass would agree that this is justifiable. In December of 2002, the New Zealand Ministry of Social Development released a report entitled A Review of Literature on Child Prostitution. And for this report and any other report that I'm citing, I will provide a link to, or at the very least, a title to in the low bar. But in this report, they go over the number of children in prostitution in both New Zealand and in Australia. For New Zealand, they say, quote, "In New Zealand, there are almost no hard data available. An ECPAT New Zealand National Survey found over 195 known cases of child prostitution, with 145 being under the age of 16 years old. Both governmental and non-governmental welfare agencies throughout the country have contact with young people who are known or thought to be involved in sex work, but the data are anecdotal." The study that they were talking about is authored by Miriam Safira, who also co-authored this report with Pam Oliver. ECPAT stands for End Child Prostitution, Child Pornography, and the Trafficking of Children for Sexual Services. The Safira ECPAT report was published in 2001. So here we have a woman who is well published and works for an organization that combats child prostitution. She admits in two reports, a governmental one and one for ECPAT, that they do not have hard numbers available for the amount of children involved in prostitution just prior to decriminalization in New Zealand. In other words, these are just guesses. In another New Zealand government report, this time through the Ministry of Justice, entitled The Nature and Extent of the Sex Industry in New Zealand, an Estimation, which was released in 2005, 38 police officers throughout the 12 districts of New Zealand were interviewed from November 2003, which was just before decriminalization, to April 2004, which was just after decriminalization. And I'm going to read a piece of this report in regards to exploited children. Many respondents indicated that they were either unaware of underage sex workers or that there were none in their area. 3 respondents were not able to estimate numbers of underage workers, but indicated that they have had information of underage workers in the past. However, several respondents, 10, were able to identify underage sex workers. These respondents were primarily those representing larger urban centers. In total, 210 underage sex workers were identified, with 3/4 of these being identified in one police district. Over half of the underage sex workers, 60%, were located in the street sector. In yet another governmental report from New Zealand, again through the Ministry of Justice, this one is from December 2008. It is entitled The Report of the Prostitution Law Review Committee, the Operation of the Prostitution Reform Act 2003. It states, "There are considerable difficulties in determining the number of underage people used in prostitution in New Zealand. Underage people, like sex workers over the age of 18 years, transit in and out of the sex industry. Some underage people are only used in prostitution for a short time, and others enter and exit the industry repeatedly. The committee's first report provided an estimate of the number of underage people used in prostitution in New Zealand based on the best information available at the time. The report used information gathered from a telephone survey of the police districts and area over a period of November 2003 to April 2004. Again, this is the same report that I had mentioned earlier. And it was estimated that there were 210 underage people involved in the sex industry at the time, with a majority located in the street-based sector. A quarter of all the underage people were identified as working in escort agencies, and 10% were working privately. A cautious approach should be taken to these findings, however, as the level and quality of police information on the sex industry vary greatly around the country. Police notes that, as a result of legislative changes, the police have less contact with the sex industry, and there is no systemic intelligence gathering and collation. The report goes on to have more information in this section, including most NGO workers not seeing a increase of underage prostitution since the Prostitution Reform Act was implemented, or decriminalization. The committee report closes this particular part of the section with the following comment. Based on the research and the information provided to the committee does not consider the Prostitution Reform Act has increased underage involvement in prostitution. The committee believes that the media coverage of underage involvement in prostitution has often created an exaggerated impression of the numbers involved. The committee believes that the passage of the Prostitution Reform Act has raised awareness of the problem of underage prostitution, and that this is a positive consequence. A very small percentage of young people who are sexually active are active in the context of prostitution. Further, few young people who can generally be termed at risk are involved in prostitution. I've looked to see if there is any more recent data as of December 2008, and I have yet to find any. If any of you know of any, then I'd be happy to have a look at it. Until there is empirical evidence, I'm going to trust that the people who work on the front lines with sex workers in New Zealand are correct in stating that decriminalization has not increased child prostitution. As far as Sweden's claims of success, I am going to thoroughly go over the report and do some more research. I hope to do a video about that soon. I will admit that I am highly skeptical of a government who refuses to give the rights of consultation to a whole population of people when implementing policies and legal strategies for them, which is something that they have done with sex workers. Anyways, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Sláinte.